A country hunter found a baby of uncertain fate in a broken-down cart. He immediately scooped the child up. Fortunately, he heard a heartbeat. It meant the child was still alive. It was like heaven had opened another window for them. The infertile hunter couple received a gift from heaven. 12 years later, Rona grew up. He was intelligent and learned to read by himself. You have to know that this was learned in a hunter family with no education. He asked his father, "How can I use magic?" His father was stunned, because he himself didn't know the book he brought for his child was actually a magic book. His father thought for a moment, "If I can chop down a tree with just one swing of an axe, does that count as magic?" "Sure. Of course. Dad is the best." The father looked at little Ronald, smiling, but feeling guilty inside. He thought of himself as inadequate, because he couldn't provide Ronald with a better education. So, he decided to take little Ronald to the city the next day. This is a regional city in the kingdom of Tormia. It's called Craze. Little Ronald was very excited, because there were countless shops here, and all sorts of snack stalls. This was a scene he'd never seen in the countryside. Dad had business to attend to. He told Ronald not to go into the alleys, and not to meet the nobles. Then he drove away. Little Ronaldo waits for his dad in Grandpa Martin's shop. Ronaldo is very popular wherever he goes. He starts asking Grandpa if he knows about magic. Grandpa doesn't understand. "What? Are you hungry?" This makes little Ronaldo stomp his feet in anger. "Magic. Quickly tell me how to use magic." He then looks forward with great expectation. Grandpa laughed cheerfully. "I don't understand magic, but if it's a book, over there, in that bookstore, there are many books. They should have what you're looking for." Ronald's curiosity drove him to run straight to the bookstore. Grandpa Martin picked up little Ronald's book and said, "Fairy tales are full of memories." Then his eyes widened. Wow, this little guy isn't reading a normal book. Meanwhile, young Ronan was refused service at the bookstore. The librarian was furious, because these expensive books were off-limits to commoners. Ronan was stunned. Expensive? Where did Dad get his books then? Just then, a well-dressed man entered. He asked the librarian if the books he ordered had arrived. This gave little Rona the chance to start desperately flipping through the books. Kicked out, little Rona was still smelling his hands. He had just washed them, after all. Turning around, he saw the books again. Without thinking, he followed them. But in the end, they dropped the books on the floor. At that moment, little Rona understood something. Because this is a garbage dump. So, father's books came from here. He turned and saw the person standing to the side. He didn't understand. What was the difference between a nobleman and himself? Why did even his father specifically instruct him not to meet with nobles? He grew angrier and angrier. He had to figure out what the difference really was. Suddenly, someone put a hand on his shoulder. A uniformed man told him he couldn't loiter there, because the other side of the gate was the noble district. He started asking where Ronan's parents were. Then another man in uniform arrived. They became suspicious of Ronan, because Ronan didn't look like an orphan, so he might be a runner for thieves. Immediately, he decided to take young Ronan away. The infant little Ronan was abandoned in the countryside, left with a hunter's mare. The childless hunter couple gladly accepted this blessing from heaven. They raised little Ronan as their own child, treating him like a precious treasure. But little Ronan was completely different from the other children his age. While the other kids were still playing and roughhousing, he immersed himself in the books his father brought home. There was a legend of a mysterious person. With just a wave of his hand, he could bring rain to the dry land. Not only that, he also protected the village from the threats of wild beasts outside. Under the protection of his mysterious power, the village enjoyed happiness and peace. The villagers all found his power very mysterious. He was called the magician. But sadly, he only understood the book. He couldn't use magic. But this didn't affect his studious nature. The city they lived in was a place with a cruel social hierarchy. When young Luana first entered the city to study, he encountered setbacks. As a commoner, he was not worthy of touching the expensive books. He even saw with his own eyes the books he treasured being thrown away like trash by the city's aristocrats into a garbage heap. This was the second time he felt the inequality of this world. He stood by the garbage heap for a long time. He only said one sentence. "So, this is what the books Dad brought back were like. They all came from here." But at that moment, little Rona was grabbed by the shoulder. Because of his simple clothes, the patrolling guards mistook little Rona for a servant of the thieves. They tried to take him away. Fortunately, little Rona reacted quickly. Seeing the situation, he performed a golden cicada shed its shell move. This left the patrolling guard stunned. He hid behind a nearby flower basket. He was so dirty. Looking like this, he's afraid he'll be scolded by his father when he gets home. Just then, little Ronaldo heard a voice from behind the wall. Children, next we'll talk about what magic is. No, principal. Show us a fireball spell. Silly kids who use fireballs at school will get in trouble. But if you answer my question correctly, I can show you some magic. Tell me, what's the most important ability for learning magic? Knowledge. No, it's hard work. Because you have to learn for a lifetime. You're both wrong. It's money. Because many things require money to buy. You are all wrong. The most important talent in learning magic is the insight to see through everything. Magic is a set of laws. So, insight is more accurate than knowledge, and more useful than effort. As long as you hone your talent, you can become a magician. Alright, then the child standing behind the wall. What are you thinking? Xiao Luana was startled by the principal's sudden question. Should he run away or answer the principal? He didn't know what would happen next, but he was very clear about one thing. If he didn't cross this wall now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Beyond the wall is the Noble Magic Academy, Paya's magic school. The elderly man under the tree is the headmaster of the magic school, named Alpias, a recognized level 4 mage. Hello. Little one behind the wall. Baby Lorna, still an infant, was found by hunters in the countryside of Majiri. The infertile hunter couple gladly accepted the gift sent by the heavens. 12 years later, little Ronar had grown up. By chance, he found himself outside the walls of the Noble Magic Academy. He overheard some knowledge about magic. The principal sensed little Ronar eavesdropping behind the wall, but instead of getting angry, he invited little Ronar in for a chat. Little Ronar hesitated for a moment. Driven by his thirst for knowledge, he had to climb over this wall. But little Rona's simple clothes sparked surprise from the 1,000 people waiting at the school. Because this is a world with a brutal social hierarchy, even children have a clear understanding of status and class. As a commoner, little Rona was looked down upon by a group of noble children. Fortunately, the principal wasn't so snobbish. He accepted little Rona's commoner status. Seeing this, little Rona said frankly, I want to see what magic really is. Because he had only read about it in books, but never seen it with his own eyes. The noble children started arguing again. How could a commoner possibly understand books? Little Ronald bent down. Whatever magic it is, please. The headmaster laughed at the sight, and then waved his hand. Suddenly, a gentle breeze swept through the entire area. In an instant, it turned into a wild gust of wind howling towards them. In the blink of an eye, it swept little Rona and all the children into the sky. Unlike the other happy children, little Rona was terrified. This was the height of more than 30 floors. But suddenly, all the children lost the protection of the wind spirits. They plummeted straight back down to where they had taken off from. Little Ronan was so scared he nearly peed his pants. Tears were streaming down his face. But in the end, he was floating there. This made the surrounding kids burst into laughter. The principal was laughing happily. This is the wind magic demonstrated by the principal. Curiosity overcame little Ronan's fear. What exactly is magic? Seeing him like this, the principal started to tease him. This made little Ronan panic and shout, please, tell me the truth. The other children were shocked by his rudeness. Even the principal's expression suddenly darkened. But when he saw little Ronan's stubborn gaze, he gave his answer. Magic is a behavior that defies common sense. It is a spiritual approach to exploring the truth. Little Ron asked a question. So, is magic something close to the truth? The headmaster laughed strangely. Is that written in the book? These are some common characteristics I found in the book. This conversation confused all the children. Only the headmaster felt satisfied. How can I learn magic? What a clever little kid. Is he trying to independently study magic using the accurate information he's gathered? This child, does he really believe he can achieve something like that? But unfortunately, he's just a commoner. Xiaoya, activate your mental domain. No problem, headmaster. Principal, I have activated my psychic abilities. How many coins do I have in my hand? Xiaoya's answer is accurate. There are indeed 6 coins in my hand. When the magician concentrates, her psychic abilities become extremely sensitive. So sensitive that she can perceive everything around her. For example, right now, without opening her eyes, Xiaoya knows there are 3 coins left. Any mage who can enter the realm can control this phenomenon. This is an extremely sensitive spiritual realm. Little Ron was completely shocked by this scene. First, you must perceive your own existence. Then erase your own existence. If you can do that, you will open a world completely different from before. But if you can't perceive yourself, then it's impossible to erase yourself, right? The principal was surprised by this answer. Do you want to try here? Xiao Luana immediately closed his eyes and began to feel his own existence. Is it the brain? No, it's just the body's organs, but the senses and perception that can be felt. It will never depart from the concept of the brain, so it shouldn't be defined. Instead, it should be felt. Then erase each thing you feel, one by one. Finally, leave only a spiritual existence. Xiao Ronar slowly opened his eyes. The principal offered greetings. How is it? Do you feel anything? Little Rona widened his eyes, gasping for breath. He was scared, because he could hear every sound around him. The principal patted little Rona's head. Then he led the other children back to school. He really is a very talented child. Calling him a genius wouldn't be an exaggeration. If he were a noble's child and had received training from a young age, his achievements should be extraordinary. It's a pity, there are talented children in this world. Little Ronan doesn't linger, but after climbing over the wall, he stops, gasping for air, standing still, because for him, this is the beginning of his journey into the world of magic. There was a boy, his name was Rona. Wrapped in a blanket, he was left at a hunter's doorstep. Therefore, he was raised as the hunter's child. Young Rona was a prodigy. At the age of 6, he learned to read and write by himself. During his first trip to the city, he encountered magic. Under the guidance of a great mage, he successfully opened his spiritual realm on his first try. But this naturally simple country boy was threatened and bullied by a noble young lady. Overwhelmed by extreme fear, he transformed into a terrifying being. When little Ron opened his spiritual realm earlier, he had an unprecedented experience. He heard the voices of the entire world. His consciousness felt like it was split into countless fragments, scattered across every corner of this world. To put it in his words, that immense, boundless feeling made him tremble. Although it only lasted a moment, he left his physical body. In that moment, he became this infinitely vast world. And expanding infinitely, he collided with someone else. That was very bad, because the person little Rona bumped into was no good. He was immediately grabbed by someone. You little thing. Since you've bumped into someone, you should pay compensation, right? Where are your parents? This was the first time little Rona had been threatened in his life. Fortunately, a voice of persuasion came from nearby. A red-haired noble girl stepped out of the crowd. The girl's name was Amy. In this world with a harsh social hierarchy, the nobles are the supreme beings. Little Ronald quickly explained that it was a misunderstanding, but instead, he was met with a knee strike. The pain made him collapse to the ground, gasping for air. The girl's appearance didn't improve the situation. Instead, it made these thugs even more ruthless, kicking him violently with one blow after another. Amy walked up, and silently watched little Ron. Amy's appearance wasn't to save little Ron, and her following words sent shivers down little Ron's spine. Anything else fun we can do? A voice from the side discussed how to sell him as a slave. Little Ron wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what that meant. Amy pondered. If she was going to sell him as a slave, he would need to be flawless to be valuable, right? Shouldn't she check if he has any flaws first? The crowd immediately erupted. They laughed and shouted to give Ronan a full-body check. If they didn't, they would continue the abuse. Seeing this, Amy's face turned red. She only wanted to take a closer look at Ronan's face. And, actually, she just wanted to amuse herself, so she let little Ronald go. But it seems like she took it too far this time. Because little Ronald now seems to be in an abnormal mental state. That's right. Little Ronald's mental state is indeed no longer normal. In his world, everything has been slowed down countless times. Everything is so slow that he can even see the hairs on the fly that passes by. Because of extreme fear, instinct drove him to open the spiritual realm again. And in this spiritual realm, his consciousness was sucked into a light behind him. The light carried his consciousness back to the Magic Academy. He saw the moment when the Grand Mage released the wind magic. But this time it was different, because he clearly saw the wind sprite dancing in the Grand Mage's hand. Immediately, this memory transformed into a beam of light. It flooded into his mind in one breath. This instantly numbed his mind. He became like a marionette. Amy, noticing something was wrong, was about to call out to stop him, but it was too late. A gust of wind swept up from beneath Ronan. Those standing beside him were all pulled into it. It was just a moment. A vacuum zone appeared next to him. So, where did the people around him go? The answer is, in the sky. Little Ronan suddenly regained consciousness. At the same time, the people in the sky all fell down. They all crashed violently right in front of him. This made him fall into fear again. How could he have seen such a horrific scene? To think that a fall from several meters high directly onto the concrete is no joke. Amy rushed toward Rona and demanded an explanation. Who are you really? You're just an ordinary person. Why are you using magic? Before Rona could respond, but the people on the street were drawn over by the commotion. Seeing this, Amy didn't hesitate, crouching down and powering up. In an instant, she vanished before Ronan. But little Ronan couldn't jump that high. He knew he was in big trouble. And how could he possibly explain this scene? He only had one thought in his head. He has to hurry and find his father. This world is really cruel. The sunset sets. In the noble Carmice family of first-class aristocrats, the head of the family, Carmice, asks his daughter if she skipped class again. The young girl responds that she has already learned everything she can. And it's really not fun at all. With that, she huffily storms up the stairs. The head of the family thought that, even if you are a genius, you should not be complacent. What would you do if someone stabbed you in the back? These words left Amoton frozen in place. After thinking for a moment, he said one thing. Dad, I want to learn magic. If you know anyone from the Magic Academy, please introduce them to me. In just one day, at the age of 12, Ronan unlocked the mental realm twice. The first time was under the guidance of the great mage. This allowed him to experience the vastness of the world. But it also filled him with an overwhelming sense of dread. The second time was triggered by extreme fear. His instincts drove him to open the mental realm once more. But this time, it led to him losing control under the violent magic. After the close call, the young Ronan realized the dangers of the world. Winter has arrived, and the north wind brings a cold wave from afar. Father called out Ronan's name everywhere. Mother said Ronan went to cut wood. This surprised father, because the heavy snow hadn't stopped yet. He was holding the book he had just retrieved for Ronan. He was eager to teach Ronan. But now he had to go out and find him immediately, because during that time in spring, when he took Rona to the city, he thought he almost lost Rona. At the time, Rona simply told him that he was lost. But the child was crying uncontrollably. This shattered all the emotions inside him. In the snowy forest, a dead tree stood straight, but its trunk was covered in axe marks. In front of it stood a child holding an axe. The child was panting heavily. Since the day he used wind magic, he hadn't been able to successfully use that spell again, and since it had happened unconsciously, it meant he still had no knowledge of how to cast magic. However, when fully concentrated, he could still enter an extremely sensitive state. He expands his spiritual realm, and within that spiritual realm, he can sense everything, texture, form, even smell. He can feel it all. He even discovered a particular point on this tree, though he doesn't yet understand what it is. But that doesn't stop him from swinging his axe. But the axe swung towards that light spot, actually split the tree apart with a bang. Little Rona instantly got excited. At the same time, the blast also took out Rona's old man, hidden behind the tree. Come on, if this were you, wouldn't you be blown away if your 12-year-old son split the tree? Wouldn't you be shocked? But after calming down and thinking about it, doesn't this indirectly prove one thing? His son really is a genius. This made him grip the book in his hand even tighter. Little Rona, however, had no idea his father was behind him. All he knew was that in the days to come, he needs constant repetition and training, and he feels he needs more knowledge. 3 years later, a maple leaf fell onto the boy's shoulder. This leaf awakened him. He picked up the axe beside him again, and came to a thick, large tree. He raised his axe. He struck down fiercely. With just one blow, the tree endured pain beyond what life could bear, and fell straight down. The young man straightened up. A faint blue light flickered in his eyes. He had been keeping his mental domain open for a full 5 hours. He had fully immersed himself in this nature. He remembered what the principal had said. If you can expand your spiritual domain, you'll open up a whole new world. That sentence really wasn't an exaggeration at all. It was even more accurate than expected. When Rona returned to his doorstep, he saw 2 white horses. He understood. The resplendent carriage further confirmed that its occupants were either rich or noble. Rona, back home, they just found it unbelievable, because that person was actually sitting at the same table as their parents. The newcomer was Temurin, the deputy butler of the Austen family. Rona first bent down to show respect, but then the deputy butler put his hand on his shoulder, and then, he simply picked him up. It was as if he was examining an object. He turned him around. He didn't speak until he had checked everything. You have a good reputation. You're the child of a mountain man, yet you know how to read. You're also very filial. Have you ever considered working for the Ottersen family? The family's grand library is about to be relocated. There are confidential materials among the over 10,000 books. The project will last 2 years. Over 10,000 books need to be categorized. Only you and I can complete this. Ronald is very clear. If it's the Ottersen family library, then there will definitely be advanced knowledge needed by mages there. Also, listen carefully. Only your family knows about this matter. No matter what the reason is for any leak of the books, you and your family will die. This is a life or death job. I'll give you enough compensation, more than you could earn hunting a lifetime. Rest assured, enough to last you for the rest of your life. This clearly agitated the old man. I'm not doing this for the money. I just want my son, Ronald, to achieve his dreams. But this sentence obviously feels weak in this context. The butler laughed after hearing it. He didn't believe it. A commoner's child, what dreams could he possibly have? How could he rise above? If it weren't for money, why would he ask to hire his son? The old man's face changed after hearing this. Didn't you say you could let him read the books in the library? Of course I can read. I mean, it's not like I can monitor him 24/7. But you want him to achieve his dreams? Until now, have you been lying to your son this way? Is that really the case? Actually, no. Rona's mother had only taught him a few words for fun at the time. At just 6 years old, Rona unexpectedly began to teach himself, and from then on, it was unstoppable. Looking at Rona's aristocratic appearance and that clever little head, he couldn't help but wonder if Rona might have noble blood. He shook his head at the thought. How could I think like that? He's my son, and since he's the child of a mountain dweller, he should learn how to live in the mountains, shouldn't he? But after seeing Rona working in the mountains, he was suddenly filled with remorse. Because he had actually raised Ronan into a child of the mountains. Ronan shouldn't be this kind of person. That's why, later, when he heard that the steward needed a literate commoner, the old man knelt on the ground, weeping, begging the steward to hire his son. He could take no money at all. And if he had known the steward's intentions, he would never have begged him. At that moment, the man broke down. He ordered the butler to leave immediately. The butler said nothing. He turned around directly. People these days, they get angry when exposed. Unexpectedly, Ronald spoke up at this time. Sorry, butler, please forgive my father's rudeness. I'm willing to go. This sudden interruption surprised the old man. It also surprised the butler. Are you serious? I'm not trying to scare you. If even a hint of this leaks out, you won't keep your head. It's okay, please let me go. I will not make any mistakes. And if something really happens, I won't blame anyone. I'll come pick you up in a week. You can change your mind at any time, but you need to think carefully. Once you enter the manor, you can't leave for 2 years. Dad almost went crazy. Those landlords just want to find someone to take the fall. Why would you accept something like this? And Rona's answer was incredibly simple. Dad, thank you for giving me such a great gift. Dad just broke down in tears. Ronald actually understands. Others may not understand, but he can. Dad is really warm, so warm. He's already sacrificed so much to help him succeed. Even at this moment, Dad only has one thought in his heart. Good son. I wonder if I finally acted like a proper father this time. A week went by quickly. Dad signed the confidentiality agreement. But it's like he's written himself a 2-year indenture. So Ronan was taken away. On the carriage, he couldn't imagine his parents' feelings at this moment. He expanded his spiritual domain. They won't be able to see each other for 2 full years. They not only feel reluctant to part, but also worry about their son's safety. No matter how reluctant he is, he knows he cannot waver. Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But it is also a double-edged sword. Because he must survive within the cracks of powerful forces. No one knows. Will he be able to smoothly get through these 2 years? As of now, more than 4 million people are eagerly awaiting the story of the strong young man who was found in the marsh. Little Ronald's journey of growth. He learned to read at the age of 6. At 12, he could read magical books. By 15, he was able to master the spiritual realm. And now, he has received a great opportunity. Even if this road is full of thorns and twists, it doesn't matter. Rona will still embark on the path to discovering the truth. Along the way, Rona didn't really feel anything, until the scenery at his destination stunned him and filled him with awe. This place is a famous scenic spot belonging to the second-class noble Otson family. Its name is Maple Forest Avenue. A child from a mountain village family, how could he have ever seen such a magnificent sight? This scene after scene felt like opening the door to a whole new world. Magnificent. Grand. Incredibly wealthy. Even the family crest exudes an air of wealth. The deputy steward, Temulan, had been waiting for Ronan's arrival. Without rest, he immediately took Ronan to begin explaining his duties. Finally, Ronan arrived at the place he had longed for, the Otterson Library. Next, the assistant butler will move over 10,000 books here to the new library. Ronald's job responsibility is to classify the books. Every week, he will receive a new catalog. Ronald is responsible for finding the books and keeping them safe. From 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Afterward, it's free time. But he cannot go outside. And unless specifically instructed, he cannot enter or leave the estate. We officially start work tomorrow. The next day, Ronald was ready and quickly got into his role, and he also understood why he had to do the book classification work alone. Because the classification standards must be consistent, more people would definitely cause chaos. For example, if this book on the history of swordsmanship needs to be classified, should it be classified under history books or swordsmanship books? Everyone will have different opinions on history. During the process of establishing the classification system, he discovered another phenomenon. All knowledge seems to be interconnected like a Mobius strip, and at the center of this connection is a core. That is the history of kingdoms. And history is the backbone of all knowledge. Once history is thoroughly understood, other areas of knowledge can be further strengthened. His learning speed will be faster. Out of more than 10,000 books, about 850 are history books. In order to achieve his dream of becoming a magician, he must memorize them within these 2 years. At that moment, someone arrived. Rona quickly hid the books, because reading was not allowed. It was the deputy butler. Working overtime again, young man. The book classification is done very well. You're still young. You have a long road ahead of you, don't wear yourself out. Otherwise, if you delay this responsibility, you'll have to bear it all. Suddenly, the butler stopped and didn't leave. He walked straight towards Rona. This made Rona break into a cold sweat. Could it be that they found out about the night shift reading? However, the butler only said a few words. Not only the butler, but also the master and young master will come to the library. Don't neglect your uniform management. And also, fix your hair. You look just like your father. This really scared Ronald out of his wits. At the same time, he also made it clear that he must be more careful and not leave any evidence. Late at night, Rona discovered another problem. These books are just too difficult to understand. 3 emperors, 7 kingdoms. Even the history of just the Ptolemaic kingdom is daunting. Memorizing all these books is going to be tough. I need to come up with a memorization technique. He started seeing stars as he thought and thought. He fell asleep on the table. There's no helping it. If it were up to us, we'd probably be going to bed even earlier. So Jip OG in lore suddenly the book on the table was picked up. Eat in port. This little guy is really bored. He's been reading this kind of book for a whole half month. If you were reading something practical, I'd definitely stop you from working overtime. But it seems, there's no need for that now. Because he's just an idiot with grand dreams. Unknowingly, 3 months have passed. He's become quite adept at the cataloging work. But he's discovered something else that makes him very uncomfortable. That is, the powerful people here don't really care about the books in this library. Losing a book is just a matter of scratching their heads and saying they'll take care of it. But that's normal. After all, truly important books wouldn't be kept in a library like this. So Ronan didn't dare say anything more, because he understands the stakes involved. Doing his job honestly doesn't mean he's safe here. Although the noble's leisure is achieved with the support of the commoner's loyalty, countless commoners have disappeared while risking their lives to search for the nobles. And the nobles, to avoid bad rumors, tend to become ruthless. So, quietly taking care of his own business is the best way to ensure his safety. The door burst open. A guy with blue hair rushed in, running and cursing about a stinky old man. This startled Ron. He'd just been saying he wanted to keep a low profile, and then this happens. This guy is Ian, the head of the family's youngest son. He seemed to be hiding from someone. He begged Ron not to tell anyone he was hiding there. Luo Na exclaimed about this guy's height. He's a whole head taller than him. No one would believe it if I told them. The son of the head of the household was so scared he dove under the table. How terrifying must the person he's hiding from be? The next second, the old man rushed in, running and shouting. Has anyone seen a guy with blue hair? Is it as big as a peanut? Are you hiding here, peanut? With that height, you're calling them a peanut? What does that make you? Who are you, old man? May I ask who you're looking for? The old man just snapped. He's a grand swordsman. And he's Ian's teacher. He bluntly said that if Ian wasn't handed over, he would beat up both of them, Ian and Ronan. Although they both couldn't afford to offend him. But Ronan could still tell who to target. Go ahead, old man. This old man is someone we can't afford to offend. This person, we have to sell out. See? The old man is completely ruthless. A teacher is a teacher, after all. Even if you're the youngest son of the family head, you're still going to be disciplined. But this time, it's certain to offend someone. Ian harshly said, just wait and see, before being dragged away. Luo Na also knew. It seems like the days ahead are going to be eventful. In this episode, Luo Na finally gained friendship. Rona, who had never held a sword from birth until now, was challenged to a duel by Peanut, who had practiced kendo for 15 years. But no one expected that. In just 3 rounds, Rona managed to land a sword move. A move that Peanut had failed to grasp after 15 years of practice. This made Peanut horrified as he realized something. The boy in front of him was just like his older brother. He has terrifying swordsmanship talent. Both of their weapons were destroyed, but the winner has not yet been determined. So Huasheng drew his real sword. However, the duel is not now. Huasheng knows he can't bully a beginner. And, because of his talent, he can make an exception this time. A month later, still at this place. A duel to settle the score, to decide life or death. Ronan understands what this challenge represents. If he loses next time, his head will definitely be gone. He begs Peanuts to reconsider. But Peanuts refuses. If you can learn sword killing while chopping trees, then you must have a way to learn swordsmanship. A month later, it's a fight to the death. I will definitely surpass you. After some investigation, Ronan discovered why Huasheng's personality was so extreme. The head of the Osint family had 3 sons and 1 daughter. The eldest son was a recognized 6th-order great swordsman. The eldest daughter's talent was also outstanding, but compared to swords, she prefers music. So she often performs as the royal palace pianist in various places. The second son, that is, Lai, is known as a genius in swordsmanship. Unlike his brothers, who are rising stars, the youngest son, Ian, also known as Peanut. The head of the family even had to hire a special tutor for him, and he has been described as having no talent whatsoever. This is like Peanuts being compared to his brothers since he was young. And then, Ronaldo's move this time is no different from a heart-wrenching betrayal. Knowing the truth, tears just started falling non-stop. He originally thought that as long as it wasn't related to books, things wouldn't go wrong. But now that a new problem has emerged, he has no choice but to face it. So, as long as he can learn swordsmanship now, he might still have a chance to survive. Peanut was also in the middle of intense training. Seeing Peanut, who was unusually focused on training, the old man felt deeply relieved. The child has grown up, and is now working so hard. But the old man's relief was met with Peanut's brutal counterattack. What kind of training is this? I can still stand on 2 legs. Isn't there something tougher? Seeing how hard Peanut was pushing himself, the old man began to wonder. Could it be that he's stimulated because Lai learned a new sword technique? But that doesn't make sense. Because Lai even opened the framework. There's nothing new that could stimulate him anymore. So what is a framework? Let me explain it this way. If you say that mages have a spiritual realm, then swordsmen have a framework. Architecture is a power that greatly enhances one's physical body. Some masters of architecture can even apply this power to every cell in their body, further enhancing their physical limits. The mode of architecture is the exact opposite of the spiritual domain. Through the teachings in the books, Ronan decides to give it a try. First, he needs to sense his own existence. It's simple up to here. He can do it, because it's like the spiritual realm. But what comes next is completely the opposite of spiritual projection. He only needs to draw the power back into his own body, to complete the framework's construction. But, Ron knew very well, training the architecture now would be the least efficient. Therefore, he decided to learn swordsmanship based on mental cultivation. This path would be more suitable for him now. Meanwhile, Huasheng was training desperately in an almost manic, self-abusive way. This made the teacher feel heartbroken, because Huasheng was literally crying while training. He feels very unwilling, because he still can't grasp the structure. Until the training stick was taken away, the teacher was heartbroken. He couldn't bear to watch anymore. Today, let's call it a day. The teacher wiped his wounds while chatting with him. Peanut was on the side, cursing, as if his arm was about to break. The teacher said she had never written in the report that Peanut was gifted. This naturally earned her a glare from Peanut, because he knew about it too. So he worked hard to overturn this. The teacher thought he had already done very well, but he didn't think so, because he knew where he still needed improvement. The old man chimed in. That's why I say you're not a genius. It's just a chat. Why do you always provoke people? You made Huasheng angry to death. The old man ignored him. He just kept talking to himself. A genius knows they're a genius. They know they're doing well. So the effort geniuses put in is always just about doing well themselves. Those geniuses don't have the strong will to challenge their own limits. And precisely that kind of will is the nemesis of geniuses. Peanut knew that the old man was saying this to comfort him. But it also reminded him once again. That's right. If he never had that talent from the very beginning, then all he needed to do was fight for it and challenge himself relentlessly. A genius? So what? He must win. Ronaldo's training is no less intense. He is undergoing special training in his own unique way. What lies behind swordsmanship? The essence of swordsmanship is actually a highly psychological battle, a life or death struggle. So, let's set up a hypothetical enemy in our minds. There are actually only 8 real directions of attack. But in practice, they can be categorized into just 2, those are offense and defense. So, as long as you continuously train in the basic swordsmanship of offense and defense from these 8 directions, you can successfully build your foundation. After the final strike and block, he unlocked his spiritual domain. The intense training that lasted for a whole month has finally come to an end. The moonlight fell upon the earth, yet it seemed exceptionally cold. Rona looked at the moon and began to mutter to himself. The world of swords is truly amazing. It's like magic, endless. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. Perhaps I won't be able to go home. But I don't regret it, because I have seen such a wonderful world. The 4 torches in the martial arena are filled with a murderous aura. Peanut slowly steps into the arena. Meanwhile, Rona has already been waiting for him here. Peanut stares at Rona for a moment, stunned. In just a month, Rona's aura has already changed. He can't help but think, if Rona truly has the same swordsmanship talent as Lei, then he absolutely must win. Facing the Peanut's assault, Ronald didn't dare to delay for a moment. He immediately activated his mental domain, but he never expected that he would focus all of his attention entirely on the Peanut sword. And, under intense concentration, he successfully dodged the strike. This left the Peanut stunned. At such a close distance, this kid, isn't he afraid of swords? He's dodging instead of blocking with his sword. But actually, Ronan had already figured this out. He's afraid of death, too. However, the root of his fear is actually the death that may come in the future. And the future is nothing but an illusion. So, just don't imagine what will happen next. Even if it's a cliff, anyone could jump straight down. Rona's state shocked Peanut. Because the Rona in front of him looked as if he had completely shut off his emotions. This made him realize he had to take this duel even more seriously. He launched another attack. To his surprise, Rona had already predicted Peanut's move. He directly raised his sword to meet Huasheng's blade. But this was still not enough. Because there was always a wall that Luona couldn't overcome. That was years of accumulated combat experience. Huasheng's sword grew heavier and heavier. Now it was so heavy that he was having trouble withstanding it. Furthermore, in battle, there's a tactic called changing tactics. This is also something Luona lacked. So Rona was tricked by his sudden change of move. But Rona also realized something else. That is, Peanut. He had been making large, sweeping chops. His sword is heavy, that's true. But because his moves were so big, it was actually easy to dodge. But if Peanut could adjust his fighting style a little, perhaps the outcome would have been different. But there's another possibility. That is, Peanut simply doesn't understand how to adjust his fighting strategy. Because if he were adaptable, he could have easily severed his ribs with that last strike. So, this completely proves that Peanut's understanding of swordsmanship is worse than he expected. In that case, operational change. Peanut's projected combat effectiveness is directly downgraded. Tactical change, shifting from defense to offense. Ronar launches a proactive attack. Ronar's sudden change in fighting style surprised Peanut. He found Ronar's attacks increasingly difficult to defend against. Although they were basic slashes, the angles were surprisingly tricky. If this continues, he will lose. This is hard for him to accept. He has been working so hard for so long. Why? Why should he lose to a genius? He would be ridiculed by the so-called genius. He will never accept this happening again. He charged forward again. But this time, his attacks became relentless. He had completely given up on defense, only offense. And under his nearly frantic fighting style, Rona was horrified to discover that Peanut's swordsmanship had become completely erratic. A sword, like a shooting star, fell from the sky. It plunged straight into the ground. Both of them were gasping for breath. The victor is decided. The sword that flew away belonged to Huasheng. In their final clash, in a fraction of a second, Luo Na changed his grip on the sword, and with all his might, thrust upwards. This terrifying insight and reaction speed left Huasheng stunned for a long time. But Rona's mind was on something else. He had won, but what should he do next? Even though it was a win or loss, the opponent was a noble. And on top of that, his pride had been hurt again. How would they handle him next? Then, the most unexpected thing happened. Peanut actually admitted his defeat openly. And he was completely honest about it. You win, I lose. So whatever you do to me, I have nothing to say. I'll accept whatever you decide. Luo Na instantly went ballistic. Are you kidding me? You're a spoiled young master. Do you think I'd still be alive if I did anything to you? Listen to what nonsense you're saying. Huasheng doesn't quite understand. Aren't we all fighting for our lives? Shut up. You're the only one fighting so hard. I'm fighting to stay alive. The two of them started arguing. Ronnie yelled at Peanut for hiding because he didn't want to train, questioning why he should be blamed. Peanut yelled back that he brought it upon himself, because you're just not loyal. Well, what kind of righteousness are we talking about here? Have you ever thought about how much burden I have to bear between the son of the family head and the swordsmanship teacher? If you were truly about righteousness, you wouldn't be putting this kind of burden on the butler, would you? If you're really about righteousness, shouldn't you be the one stepping forward to look cool? You think you're cool and righteous from your perspective, right? But actually, from my perspective, you're more like this, you know. Peanut was completely scolded by Rona and couldn't even retort. The key is, if you think about it carefully, he really was in the wrong. Rona directly collapsed onto the ground. He was both angry and exhausted. This made Peanut's face turn red. He didn't understand. How did the two who had just fought a life-and-death battle suddenly end up like this? And, where did the aloof swordsman who fought him earlier go? Why does he now look so pitiful, crying? This person is clearly a genius. But he didn't laugh at him like his brother did. Hua Xing suddenly asked for his name. Then, he generously gave his full name. As everyone knows, the first step in making friends is to exchange names. So, from this moment on, a friendship between a noble and a commoner was born. There's a saying, no pain, no gain, or perhaps, it takes a fight to make friends. These two guys are a bit different. The way they got to know each other was through a life-or-death duel, but after the duel, they gained a friendship that is priceless. A year later, the autumn breeze quietly reddened the leaves, and then took them all away to be treasured. The servants in the Oscent library were as busy as usual. The assistant butler turned around. Behind him is the handsome little Ronald. The child is already 16 years old this year. In 1 year, he has categorized over 7,000 out of 10,000 books. His efficiency is extremely high. And as for the 850 history books he needs to memorize as a goal, he has already memorized 650 of them. In addition, after last year's duel, he also learned swordsmanship. Not only that, but that duel also made his spiritual realm even stronger. Although he still gets goosebumps thinking about that duel. After all, he almost died. But the harvest was truly plentiful. He not only gained knowledge but also gained a person. As for Peanut, that kid now likes to hang out in the library whenever he's free. And compared to his large frame, he's actually very emotionally rich. And I really like to joke around. It's just that I'm a little bit too careless. Throwing books around will always get me a comment from Rona. You better not mess around. I'll be dead if I ruin a book. Oh my, look at you, books are more important than life. Is that even right? Don't worry. Even if the library burns down, Jing will protect you. This makes Rona both angry and amused. There's nothing we can do about him. Actually, there's a reason Peanut is here today. He told the teacher he was going to the library to study. Oh, come on. Does anyone not know him? Even Rona knows him. Why? It's obviously because he wants to skip training again. Look, as soon as Rona exposed him, he started acting all carefree. But actually, Peanut isn't lazy. It's a personality issue. Hua Sheng is like a firecracker. He just needs a catalyst. Given the right opportunity, he'll burn brighter than anyone. Luckily, Ronak doesn't indulge her. You're here to learn, right? Then learn properly. This made Xiao Huaxing feel so wronged, but he still obediently listened. Huaxing started complaining as he studied. You said you're learning to become a magician, right? But 800 books. That's outrageous. Ronar replied that it was actually fine, because after reading 600 books, you pretty much grasped the essence. Watching Rona flip through the book so quickly, Peanut was stunned. Oh my god, is he flipping through the book, or actually reading it? This is ridiculous. And although they are the same age, how is it that Rona looks so much more mature than him? Then it suddenly hit him. I shouldn't have stared at him, her like that. At this moment, Ron read the book's content. A swordsman and a magician duel one-on-one. Who do you think would win? Peanut, however, said, so boring. Hey, this really angered Ron. This question is quite profound. He didn't care, he pressed it directly. He insisted Peanut must read this book. And they must see the last page. Unexpectedly, as the two were arguing, a person appeared. And at the same time, they both said, undoubtedly, of course, the sword Earth will win. And this person was none other than the genius swordsman, Lei Yi, the older brother who has liked to crush Peanut since childhood. The second young master of the Ostent family. However, everyone, don't forget, this is a world with a cruel social hierarchy. Both of them are incredibly nervous now, because of the scene they just made. If Lei saw it, things might not end so well. A butler and a noble's child being so intimate. That's not allowed in this world. Huaxing quickly changes the subject. Brother, Is it because you're a swordsman that you prefer swordsman? Partial. No need for such words. Just investigate the status of swordsmen and mages on the mainland and you'll know. I laughed. Their question was about the duel. What does status have to do with it? Do you have to look at rank insignia while fighting on the battlefield? Unexpectedly, the sarcasm Hua Sheng racked his brains for, was met with Lei Yi's disregard. His attention is now all on Rona. Tell me, what do you think? This sudden focus on him made Rona's mind race. What are this person's intentions now? Although he's had contact with him before, he can't understand his thoughts, especially in a situation like this. If he answers wrong, something might happen. He can't just answer casually. He expressed his thoughts, assuming the swordsman and the mage are equally matched. I think the moment the mage enters their spiritual realm, the swordsman would have difficulty winning. Instead, using the swordsman's superior physical abilities, before the mage casts a spell, before Ronan could finish, he was immediately refuted by Ray. The mage would definitely lose. The swordsman would win. This sudden denial flustered Ronald. But what was he thinking? Actually, Hua Sheng knew very well. He'd been like that since childhood. When Lei Yi saw something he didn't like, he would happily trample on the other person's precious things. You seem to like history a lot, huh? Then you should have heard of that thing, right? The 5 gods' armor. Look at Ronan's state. Ronan must already know what the other party wants to say. Because that's an artifact that can disrupt a mage's spiritual realm, known to the world as an anti-magic existence. You seem to enjoy academic research, don't you? Then you should have heard of the 5 gods' armor, right? The 5 gods' armor. That is what the world calls anti-magic. On this continent, mages possess their inherent ability, the spiritual domain. If a warrior were to fight a mage within this domain, it would be like encountering a shark in the deep sea. However, some things can stir the water and deprive the shark of its senses. That thing is anti-magic. If the spiritual domain cannot touch it, then magic will naturally become ineffective. Let me ask you, if a warrior were to wear this equipment, what mage could possibly stand against him? Fortunately, that thing is only a theoretical concept. Firstly, anti-magic requires the magic hidden within a dragon's heart to create. That's an extremely expensive technology. Secondly, it's because this technology will cause unstable fluctuations. Even the top fluctuation equation masters on the mainland can only increase the usage rate of the 5 god armor to 65%. Because of that price. That's right, it's an astronomical amount of money. Just one component alone is enough to cover a kingdom's expenses for a year. The key to this matter is, the person who created the anti-magic is also a magician. Are you wondering why we're doing this? Isn't it obvious? Because there are too many places on the mainland that need anti-magic measures. It's practically an ATM. So, these mages don't necessarily have to go out and fight if they want to be hired. Understand? These mages. It's just that for money, they would sell out their own kind, despicable scoundrels. After saying that, it made Hua very angry. He thought Lei's words were too much. But unexpectedly, Rona picked up the conversation. You're not wrong, but that's what a magician is. Just as you said, anti-magic is something created by magicians. But it's also meant to ensure safety by restricting magic in specific areas, isn't it? And it will also be used as supplementary teaching material in magic schools. So, while anti-magic might bring disadvantages to magicians, it has also brought many benefits to this world, hasn't it? So, I find it hard to agree with the idea that swordsmen are inherently superior to magicians based on this premise. Peanut didn't hold on, because Lei was left speechless. It took me a long time to come up with a response. No matter how eloquent you are, it's useless. In the end, the mage just has to lose. Well, Lei was directly pissed off and left. He couldn't argue against the other person at all. Ronald let out a huge sigh of relief. He thought he was going to die. On the other hand, Peanut was laughing like crazy, because he had never seen his brother fail before. He praised that if the tongue were a sword, then Ronar would be the greatest swordsman in history. This made Ronar sincerely sigh from the bottom of his heart. Lei might indeed be right, but isn't it precisely the spirit of a magician to place their own weaknesses on the experiment table and explore them? And that almost indifferent rationality, isn't that even more for the sake of this world? Time flies. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye, and winter arrived. The butler was reviewing new documents. This document was about Ronald. The task of relocating the library was completed sooner than expected. It was finished in just a year and a half. This was 6 months ahead of schedule. According to the contract, Ronald had fulfilled his obligations. He should be sent home now. But the old butler thought it was a pity. Because Ronald is truly a talented person, he suggested finding an excuse to extend the contract. This would save everyone a lot of work. The assistant butler responded. What nonsense are you talking about? Get back to work. But, well, you all understand. There's a saying, the speaker has no intention, but the listener has meaning. What is Ronald doing at this moment? That's right, he's still reading. Flipping through books isn't difficult, but finishing over 800 books. That's a whole different story, isn't it? But Ronald did it. It's simply terrifying. He couldn't help but sigh to himself. It really felt like a dream. Peanut hurriedly rushed into the library. Seeing the empty library, he was stunned. He hadn't expected that Rona had actually finished all the work. No kidding, the classification of over 10,000 books. For someone like him, completing such a task was nothing short of a miracle. Just then, Rona made a request to Peanut. Ian, before you leave, can I come over to your house for a visit? Rona was stunned right from the start. She had never seen anything so extravagant. This place is Peanut's home. A house this big, aren't you afraid of getting lost inside? The family isn't here right now. They'll be back tonight. So now the only ones at home are the servants. Rona was stunned when he saw the door next to him. This door is so huge. It looks like even one room is bigger than his entire house. Peanut really is the young master of a rich family. The gap is just too big. After walking for a while, they finally arrived. This is Peanut's room. But, you know, to be honest, it's really just a dormitory where you can rest after training. Swords and bandages scattered everywhere. It actually indirectly shows how hard Peanut trains usually. The sun is gradually setting. The sky is draped in a crimson-red cloak. Brilliant and colorful. The young man was sweating profusely, gasping for air. On the other side, someone was leisurely humming a little tune. Finally, Peanut shuddered. I'm done. His mindset exploded. Good grief, he lost the entire afternoon. How can I keep playing this? He expressed his frustration. You definitely cheated using some kind of mental trick, right? Nonsense, it wasn't necessary. It's simply because Peanut's movements were too many. He puts the winning card aside immediately. The time he hesitates between pairs and non-pairs is also different. This time, Peanut was startled. How did you figure it out? Ronar explained, it's about observation. Focusing too much might not necessarily lead to good results. You can't just focus on one part of the other person. You need to look at the whole. Clearly, no matter how much you teach, it's useless. Peanuts can't grasp this kind of thing. A few words and the CPU is already burning out. Look, his brain is smoking from overwork. However, Ronaldo discovered something good. It's a novel. Struggle Against the Snake Chew CCN. He had been reading history books. It's rare to get a chance to read a novel. He turned around, about to ask if he could borrow the Peanuts. But he realized that the Peanuts CPU had already burned out, causing it to crash. Even while asleep, it was still emitting smoke. Alright. But then he suddenly remembered that Peanut had mentioned that his family would be coming back tonight. Mandy couldn't help but feel a bit flustered. Suddenly, the sound of a piano reached him, giving him a jolt. Manga he had already guessed. Manga there was only one person in this mansion who could be playing the piano. Her role was the court pianist. At the same time, she was the sister of Peanut, the eldest daughter of the Austen family. Reina Austen. How was my piano playing? Chu Manhwa, did you like it? Goodness, Rona, you're so sneaky. Hui Nan Chu Manhwa, you were eavesdropping at someone's door. You were discovered by their eldest daughter. At Nan Chu Man, this is going to be hard to get out of. At Nan Chu Man, this is the first time I've seen your face. Are you new here? Ronald was incredibly nervous. Comic. To avoid misunderstanding, he quickly told them he was a librarian. Oh, you're that child. You seem very intelligent. Have you ever played the piano? Ronald knew he couldn't let his guard down, because Peanut had said, the proudest person in this entire mansion is his sister. But he still honestly answered that he had never touched a piano. It's okay, I'll teach you. How about you sit over here? Rona was stunned. The eldest daughter of a noble family was asking her to sit over there and teach a commoner how to play the piano. This was truly a frightening thing. It's okay, come over. I brought this up. No one dares scold you, don't worry. Things have come to this. Plus, given Ronaldo's position, it's not a side you can refuse. It seems there's no way out. I can only go through with it honestly. Come on, these are the piano keys, try them. Look, it's very simple. Press these 3 keys at the same time. What is Rona thinking right now? Panicked, but it really sounds great. But he's also starting to relax his guard a little. He then asked if he could try playing it. Lena said, feel free to give it a try, because she actually doesn't have any bad intentions. It's just that Rona herself is too cautious. Her sudden, reckless playing also shocked Rena. Although she played everything wrong, Rona continued playing without hesitation, until she realized that the sound seemed to be getting more and more off-key. Rona had said to Rena before, this was his first time playing the piano, but Lena didn't suspect that Ronan was deceiving her at all, because Ronan bent his fingers while playing, and bending the fingers is a wrong fingering technique only those who don't know how to play the piano would make. This shows that Ronan only had the musical score in his head, but he had never actually played, so, he wasn't playing randomly at first. Instead, he was trying to figure out the distribution pattern of the 7 groups of keys on the piano, and to memorize the note names of all 88 keys on the piano. She doesn't understand, why would a genius like this come to work? And this little kid's appearance, it seems a little too outstanding. Suddenly, a roar came from inside. It scared Rona, making her shudder. It was Peanut waking up. He thought his sister was disturbing his sweet dream again with her piano playing. Luona was startled when he saw it was Peanut coming. Now, there's an 80 to 90% chance things will go wrong. Oh, so, you two know each other? You have to understand, if a commoner has such a close relationship with a noble, and it's discovered, it's going to cause a big problem. Now, he really doesn't know how to explain himself. And on top of that, he now has this strange sense of guilt. As for Huasheng's attitude, it was very straightforward. Yeah, that guy, Rona, is my good friend. Rona was terrified. His head was full of how to explain it. But Huasheng directly stated, just put your mind at ease. She's just a rather proud old witch. He wouldn't care about something like this. Rona still found it hard to believe, because this is something that could cost you your head, until Lena said a few words. So your name is Rona? Don't be afraid, it's okay. In that moment, the perception Rona had built over 16 years, it just collapsed. So it's fine for commoners and nobles to be friends. Also, Peanut, why did you lie to me? Your sister is such a great person. She's both beautiful and understanding. What are you saying? Do you think I'm lying to you? That woman is a devil. You believe it? She could just drain you dry. You have a useless little brother. But, well, Chu-man. It's really great that he knows you, at Nan Chu-man. Luo Na blushed upon hearing such compliments, at Nan Chu-man. She quickly humbly said that she was the one being taken care of. Oh my, you're just too cute. Aren't I cute? How about considering adopting him? How about turning him into family? At Nanchu Comics. Oh. Are you two already close enough at Nanchu that you can let him be your brother-in-law? Listen to what you're saying. If you really match them up, you'd be getting a good deal. It's actually poor Ronald who might be at a loss. The words, huge loss, hadn't even been finished, when Reina pinned them to the ground and gave them a good beating. And watching this scene, Rona suddenly understood why Peanut had always been cursing his sister. But she really deserved it. Peanut was very confused. Why was this witch of a sister back again? She had just taken time off a few days ago. Lena replied, don't you know? Lei Yi has a certification exam. She's leaving tomorrow. Oh no, I'm going to be so stressed after hearing this. So, what is this certification exam? Let me explain briefly. This world also has certification credentials. And these credentials are for the entire continent. As long as you succeed in the exam, you will gain recognition across the entire continent. Naturally. Because the exam is highly prestigious, the difficulty of success is also very high. Thousands of people apply every year. But in the end, only about 20 to 30 people will successfully receive certification. With an official qualification, there is naturally also an unofficial qualification. Graduating from a special institution like the Alpea's Magic School would make you an unofficial level 10 magician. The next step is to earn merit points through the Magic Association and the Guild to level up. And, even unofficial certification has countless people trying to obtain it. Because it is a symbol of wealth and honor. And such a difficult exam. Lei had already been eligible to participate at just 18 years old. How could Peanuts not feel discouraged? Sister knows this kind of thing can't be soothed away. So she just patted Peanut's head and was about to get busy with other things. It's really nice to meet you, little Ronar. I hope I'll have the chance to teach you how to play the piano properly next time. I'll be really looking forward to seeing you again. See you again. Actually, it's really hard to say, because his commitment here is already over. He has to leave this place tomorrow. Heaven knows if I'll ever have another chance to learn piano from my sister. Thinking about this, he suddenly had a brainwave and asked Huasheng a question. Ian, your sister. Does she have a boyfriend? Man. That question is really something. I believe Luona didn't mean it that way, but, in this kind of situation, you're just asking for trouble, aren't you? And of all people, you had to ask Peanut. That jerk. He didn't even turn around, just shouting as he ran. Sis, hurry up, come here. Something big happened. Lorna. That guy was asking if you have a boyfriend. Peanut's voice is so loud, it's clear and deafening. The echo of the shout lingered throughout the hall. By the time Lorna caught up, it was already too late. He was dragged back with force and effort. The servants beside him were in chaos. It took a lot of effort for my sister to smooth things over. But the servants in front are easy to handle. Their status is clear. But what about those behind the scenes? Those words were overheard by the head butler. I was just wondering about that. The young master hasn't had any guests today. No wonder the name Rona sounds so familiar. He's the kid from the library. As for you, put down whatever you're doing for now. Immediately go and bring assistant butler Temulan to see me. The next day, in a deep mountain forest, Peanut, holding a wooden stick, is already sweating profusely in this sub-zero temperature. Seeing Peanut like this, the teacher actually feels quite gratified. The last time he worked this hard was a year ago, but this time, he must have been stimulated again, right? He couldn't help but wonder. If this kid has already learned the structure, it shouldn't be so easy for him to be stimulated, right? He needed to come up with a plan. Suddenly, a shout from the little butler came from the distance. At Manchu Comics. He came to deliver a message. Reina wants Peanut to return to the mansion immediately. Peanut didn't care when he heard it was his sister's order. Then the little butler casually said, the temporary butler, Ronan, is going to die. Peanut was stunned. Wasn't he supposed to go home today? The little butler then started to explain. I heard it was the head butler who reported him to the master. The specific situation is unclear. However, it said that the problem arose because of his relationship with the young master. The teacher still doesn't know what's going on. Peanut urgently explained a few things, then turned to leave. He must go back now and explain everything clearly to his father. Then his father should forgive him. The result, the old man disagreed. And at that very moment, he drew his true sword again. Meanwhile, inside the Osint family mansion, the courtroom was now packed with people. They were judging a criminal. The boy's eyes were vacant. He sat there, dumbfounded, listening to the verdict on his fate being announced from the stage. You will be sentenced to death. There is no time to waste, execution will be immediate. The divide between commoners and nobles is ultimately an insurmountable chasm. In the courtroom, Rona was sentenced to punishment. The servants whispered among themselves in disbelief. The assistant butler could only quietly watch as public opinion stirred. The surrounding murmurs reached the head of the house, making his expression even more unpleasant. Several people beside him each had their own thoughts. Lena wanted to speak up in defense of Ronan, but she was immediately interrupted by the head of the house. No need to say more, because the head butler's book clearly records Ronan's various disrespectful acts towards Ian, and these acts have been verified as facts by the servants. The head of the house gave Ronan a chance to make a final statement before his punishment, but he only had one question. If the young master and I are friends, would the young master be implicated because of me? This question left everyone present in disbelief. Shouldn't you be trying to beg for mercy at this moment? The head of the family's face turned even darker. Who gave you the guts to ask such a question? Your foolishness is truly fitting for someone of your commoner status. Do you think you can influence him just by associating with the noble's offspring? After hearing this, Ronan felt relieved. For over a year, he finally didn't have to hide this friendship. He could finally boldly say, Ian and I are just friends. Seeing Ronan's composure, the patriarch no longer hesitated. He ordered the head steward to immediately take Ronan away for processing. And we must exercise absolute caution and ensure that this matter does not get out. Rena heard her father's command and tried to intervene again, but it was futile, because the family head had already gone mad with rage. Now, I, in the name of the family head, command this. There is no room for reconsideration. Some of the servants felt that this decision was too abrupt. After all, he is just a child. But there are also servants who understand the stakes involved. This matter is not just about one person, it will involve the entire family. And the family is the reason they live. This honor is truly too heavy. So, It's not that the head of the family's decision is too cruel, it's because this cruel, class-based world is too heartless. Chu Manhwa suddenly, a roar echoed from the front gate. I want to see who it really is. How dare they act without my permission, thinking they can lay a hand on my friend. He doesn't understand what it's all for. It's not like they've committed a mortal sin. They've just become friends, that's all. The roar is a response from his father to his naive reprimands. The complexity of the noble world is far beyond your imagination. If it weren't for the complexities my family shoulders, you wouldn't have had the chance to be a nobleman's son, enjoying various privileges growing up. At Manchu Comics, he doesn't accept his father's teachings. At Manchu Comics, what good are privileges gained by abandoning friends? He'd rather not have them. At Manchu Comics, his father reveals his true thoughts. Do you think that commoner genuinely wanted to be your friend? What makes you believe he entrusted you with his true heart? You should know that in this world, there will always be low-class people who want to suck the marrow of the nobles. This isn't something you can trust him to do just because you think he won't. The greed of the lower classes is beyond your comprehension. And you, what makes you so sure you can trust him? What proof do you have that you and Xylona are truly friends? Ask him to provide evidence to prove this matter. This question completely stumped Peanut. But if no proof can be provided, this matter will be over. But the problem is, how could something be presented as evidence to prove a matter? He knew this question couldn't be answered casually. But if it were Ronald standing here right now, so, Ron can definitely make a perfect counterattack. Ron shows no emotional fluctuation, but his expression is full of composure. And in his eyes, it reminded him of what Ron had said at that time. Ian, paying too much attention to details is not good. You should focus on the overall picture. As long as you can see clearly, I can see through his intentions. But how should I view the overall situation? First, he is my father. He's from a second-tier noble family. He's the head of the Otson family. He's a black-haired noble. And he also holds a level 4 knight certification. Suddenly, he understood. The current situation was no longer just a father-son argument. 30 minutes ago, when the teacher told him not to come back, he had already been warned. Be clear. That child is just a commoner. These words had strongly provoked Peanut's emotions. That was someone he could converse with through a sword. Isn't that enough for him to interact with Ronar as a friend? He's right. But he's oversimplifying this identity. He doesn't understand what nobles value most: reputation. Anyone or anything that threatens a noble's status will be eliminated without hesitation. If he wants to be friends with commoners whose lives are worth less than insects, then he should know the heavy burden his friend, Ronan, will have to bear. He hasn't even thought this through. Just yelling like that to solve the problem is simply a fool's dream. But what can he do? He can't. He simply can't think that deeply. And the whole thing started with him. He was the one who suggested becoming friends with Ronald. He doesn't want to be a despicable person. He doesn't want to be a coward either. The teacher has always liked his gaze. It's a kind of passion, pure and without any pretense. Take this with you. If you're willing to take this sword back to the mansion, I'll let you go. But you must think carefully. If you don't even have this kind of resolve, then just stay here obediently. And remember this. Abandoning a friend itself is like abandoning another version of yourself. If you go, you must understand. This will be a life or death battle. Peanut laughed. He laughed recklessly. I almost fell for your trick. To hell with your evidence. I believe in him. Besides, the fact that I am a friend of Sirona himself is proof of my friendship with him. Stop fooling around. This is no longer just a verbal dispute between you and me, father and son, do you understand? Now countless nobles are losing face because of this matter. If it concerns the prosperity of the family, even my own children, I could directly expel from the family. The head of the family's anger is met with peanuts as noble courtesy. It's okay. If this is how I can keep my friend, I can leave with a smile. The head of the family is going crazy. You brat. Draw your sword. If you truly believe that child is your friend, then bet your life on it here. At this moment, he was in disbelief. He couldn't believe his own son would actually raise that sword against him. But what Huasheng raised against his father wasn't a sword. Instead, he raised his faith, his true heart. What kind of friend is he? Is it because the noble children of your age are too excellent for you to catch up with, so you keep that commoner by your side as a comfort? Only this time, you are wrong, father. Rona is a more excellent person than I am. And I will help him shine even higher. The head of the family rebuked Rona. It's you. It must be you who deceived Ian. You told him that nobles and commoners can be friends. Rona immediately denied it. Peanut still fiercely defended Rona, extremely emotional. It wasn't until Rona called out Peanut's full name that Peanut calmed down. He had something he wanted to say to Peanut. He didn't want Peanut to bear all of this. He will bear the responsibilities he should bear. In fact, he knew it from the very beginning. There would always come a day. He would definitely have to choose between his friends and his own life. Now, even if it means losing his life, he doesn't care. Because he has no regrets about becoming friends with Peanut. Ronald's words are sincere, without a hint of pretension. This completely broke Huasheng. Because these were the words he wanted to say. His cries filled the entire hall. Even if you want to expel me from the family, I don't care. If the world rejects us, then I will defy the whole world. Suddenly, a hearty laugh came from the attic. I never thought I'd see this kind of scene at my age. Sure enough. Youth is the best. And this old man shouting is Reina's grandfather, the current head of the family's father. Under Rona's sincere and utterly honest demeanor, Peanut completely broke down. That roar of, "I'm willing to fight the world," echoed throughout the entire hall. While the family head found it hard to believe, the old man's sighs could still be heard from the attic. Indeed, youth is the best. The old man was Reina's grandfather, the current head of the family, her real father. He had just returned, and just as he arrived, he witnessed this scene. His appearance helped stabilize the situation, which had already gotten out of control, and the clever old man had already figured out what was going on. Since everyone has something to say about this boy, let's go one by one. I'll listen to everyone's opinions before making a decision. Let's start with the eldest daughter, Lena. Although I've only met Ron once, I can feel that this child is actually very intelligent, and he has already completed his work. He can go home today. In this case, it's hard to say that his closeness to Ian has any ulterior motives, right? The old man nodded. That makes some sense. So what does the second grandson think? This kid, he has no manners at all. I don't like him. The head of the family got a little excited. However, this has nothing to do with me. He couldn't understand. Don't you hate him? At Manchu Comics. And it has nothing to do with you. At Manchu Comics. Hating is in the literal sense. At Manchu Comics. But hate is hate, at Manchu Comics. It's none of my business who Ian makes friends with. Understand? At Manchu Comics. I just want this to be over quickly at Manhwa. Then I need to go to the palace for the exam. Wow. This person is really cold. The old man is amused. As expected, the most interesting things happen at home. So what does the deputy butler think? Just as the deputy butler was about to speak, he was distracted by the head butler's cough. The head butler made a gesture. His meaning is very simple. We're not the ones who can offer suggestions. What matters is showing the master's will correctly. This child, Ronar. He not only completed the tasks I assigned him perfectly, he even finished them 6 months ahead of schedule. This child is very outstanding. The assistant butler is so handsome, but this is almost driving the head butler crazy. When the old master asked him if he knew about their friendship, this was his reply. Back to the master. I know he is very close to the young master, but I didn't know they were friends. But there is one thing I am sure of. If he were a completely clueless child, there's no way he could have completed the task of categorizing over 10,000 books. It's clear now, the wind is all in one direction. The only one still insisting on punishing Rona is his father. Now, as long as... No, that's not possible. I'm afraid I still can't accept this kind of thing. Hold on, I haven't finished yet. What I mean is, I know that the two of them are just pure friends, that's all. But, that's it. If this relationship continues, it will eventually be known by outsiders. In the end, it will become ammunition for other families to slander us. Everyone in our family holds a position in the kingdom. And with Lai about to take the exam, there can be no mistakes. With so many people in the family now, what else can I do? Rona, you're a smart kid. You must understand what I mean, right? Not bad, that little look in your eyes, it really packs a punch. Kid, how could I not understand your feelings? But the burden of the family affects the lives of countless people. So, what do you think, Zylona? Considering you taught my useless grandson what friendship really is, I'll excuse you from your punishment. But, can you really say goodbye to Ian like this? Everyone was waiting for Rona's response, but no one expected that Rona's answer would once again leave everyone in shock. That is, he couldn't do it. He said that if he would hinder Ian's growth, he could choose to leave, but he would never consider them no longer friends because of that. As long as he understands this one request, he'll accept whatever I ask him to do. Ronald's answer not only shocked everyone present, but also gave Peanut a new idea. He originally thought that as long as Ronald could survive, he would be relieved. But he discovered that Ronald had already understood the lessons his teacher had taught him. This made him feel incredibly ashamed. So he made a new decision. and left everyone present completely speechless. From this moment on, the third son of the Osint family will forever be the sword of Silona. The head of the Osint family was completely blown away this time. "You're absolutely mad." This roar pierced straight through the mansion and soared into the sky. "You are my faith. You are what I believe." The third son of the Osint family will forever become the sword of Zirona. The head of the Osint family has completely exploded this time. "You're absolutely insane." This roar pierced through the mansion and shot straight into the sky. Knight's Oath is a ceremony passed down since the founding of the Kingdom of Tormia. It dates back to the time when the powerful Adolf I unified the Kingdom of Tormia. He did not eliminate the kings of the defeated nations. This newly formed country needed to be able to withstand the power of neighboring kingdoms. So, he kept the kings in place, allowing them to continue managing their original territories. And during this process, the vow of knights to become the sword of their lord was established. In return, the lord would grant the knight the title of nobility. This is the origin of the Knight's Oath. It was also the opportunity for the birth of the nobility. Peanut, this kid is still acting tough. It's a must, of course. Who else could say something? You, a noble, made a Knight's Oath to a commoner. This is the first case since the founding of the country. If the teacher finds out, they'll definitely curse you out. At Manchu Manhwa, your sword wasn't given to you to do this kind of thing. Everyone only came to their senses after Ronan reacted. At Manchu Comics, alright, you little rascal. At Manchu, since you're willing to become his sword, at Nan, it means this boy is qualified, right? Answer me, does this qualification stem from his excellence or your emptiness? Peanut's reply was a kind of extreme contrast stemming from his personality. That is, a sword doesn't make judgments. The sword can only protect. Look at that, they're all stunned. Who could understand such words from a punk? Even Grandpa is laughing from anger. If someone so clueless can reach this level, they must be number one. I really have to hand it to you, but for your friend to get this kind of scraping sword from you, they're really suffering. Cyrano, listen carefully. Although this brat hasn't been polished yet, he's definitely not someone who would stab his master in the back. From now on, I'll entrust my grandson to you. Oh, right. Since they've gone this far, we can't just let him go back like this. Head butler, bring the carriage that's supposed to take Silona back to pick up his parents. Shut up, go do it right now. No slacking. Alright, now everyone disperse. Go back to your own business. Peanut went wild when he returned to the room. He could laugh for an entire year just thinking about his family's expressions. Rona, on the other hand, thought it wasn't worth it. There's no need to go to that extent for him. Huasheng is finally speaking her mind. I didn't make that vow just because of our friendship. You're different from my brothers. You have a power to attract others. So I want to entrust my life to someone like you. I don't regret it. Oh, my goodness, that's enough. Once those words were spoken, it really took a different turn. Ronald had no idea how to respond. He thought for a long time before saying, if you want to protect me, you're probably going to have to put in several times the effort. Peanut couldn't respond to that. He just spat out a mouthful of blood. At that moment, his sister suddenly walked in. She was shocked to hear that they had dueled and Peanut had lost. I wanted to come and understand the situation in detail, but instead, I saw this scene. Peanut is still in emo. Without even looking up, he just wants to kick people out. Ronald immediately scolded him for being so rude. The sister arrogantly said that she brought high-level intelligence. Come on, tell me. If it's not high-level enough, I'll smear this old blood on your face. Once the news broke, everything really fell apart. Now, because Peanut played the card of the Oath of the Earth, the original plans have been completely disrupted. And since they already know about Rona's exceptional swordsmanship talent, the family head now plans to send both Rona and Peanut to the swordsmanship school for lessons. And now, since Rona is also a member of the family, they also plan to invest in Rona. This is also considered as planning for Peanut's future. Peanut is really upset. What's going on? Why was everything suddenly arranged? I thought I could have some fun with Ronald. What's this? How dare you ask? Don't you know what you did? Useless fool. Peanut can't take it anymore. He shouted, Ronald, what kind of swordsmanship school was that? He's clearly a magic student. He even opened a spiritual realm. My sister exploded when she heard that, but then she suddenly realized something. Isn't this even more absurd? This is truly humiliating. You lost in swordsmanship to a magic student. How dare you use someone else's sword? Those 2 lines alone are embarrassing enough to make even Peanuts curse. Man Yen, veins bulging, unleashed a furious, impotent rant at her sister. After learning that Ronan had used the spiritual realm to defeat Huasheng, she was even more surprised. She immediately started praising him. To use the spiritual realm to this extent is simply a strategic level application. Ronan didn't take the praise well. At Nanchu Manhwa, immediately shy, both of them instantly worried. So easily shy, Nanchu. How will they date in the future? Even ghosts would worry. The older sister decided to personally report to the head of the family about Rona's talent. But if that happens, I'm afraid the 2 of them won't be able to attend school together. Huasheng panicked. What will the teacher do if they go to school themselves? I didn't expect a heartbreaking thing to be said out loud. It turns out that after the teacher found out about this yesterday, they proactively ended the contract. They just didn't say goodbye to Peanuts. After giving Peanuts the final lesson, the teacher left. The teacher probably knew that if they saw the farewell face to face, they would have a hard time leaving. The servant brought the news. Rona's family has already arrived at the reception room. The master has arranged that, if the young master is willing, he can meet them first. It's been 2 years. Rona obviously couldn't wait for another moment. In a hurry, he rushed out. He ran so fast that he scared the servants. The stairs are high, young master, please be careful. That's right. The servants have started calling him master. Ronald didn't react. I'm not a noble. Don't treat me like this. This sentence scared the 2 of them. No, don't say that. You'll lose your head. It's all right. I won't tell them. That's not going to work. Even if I had 10 lives, I wouldn't dare. At this moment, Rona finally arrived at the reception room. 3 meals, 4 seasons. Happiness, it's really nothing more than this. And at this moment, I no longer know how to express it. Dad and Mom have been worrying about Rona every day for the past 2 years. He's visibly thinner now. Dad didn't know the situation when he was picked up. He thought they were here to take Rona home. Rona then began to tell his parents about his experiences over the past 2 years. Rona spoke excitedly. He talked incessantly, unable to stop. He left his parents speechless and completely stunned. Until he explained why they were picked up. Dad's face changed. He stammered and recounted the whole incident again. And he got confirmation from Ronald. The next second, he completely lost it. The child must have been bullied. Even his mind was bullied. This broke his heart. I've heard that once someone goes to a noble's house, they never come back. So that's how it is. If we go back now, we'll end up as complete idiots. Talking nonsense. Just then, the door to the reception room suddenly opened. The head of the household was the first to greet them. Peanut then introduced himself as the one who wielded the sword. This really confirmed that Ronan wasn't joking at all. In countries with rigid social hierarchies, the commoners were suddenly received by the nobles. This expression is actually quite normal, and Ronald's parents were relatively calm. If it were other commoners, they would probably have already knelt down upon meeting the head of the orphaned family. However, even at this point, the father still found everything completely baffling. If you were to ask him how confused he was, for example, during this family meal together, Dad, it's like this. Half my soul drifted away. It stayed out there until after dinner. And during afternoon tea afterwards, the lineup across from him made him even more nervous. He didn't really understand what a knight's oath was, but he knew that nobles usually wouldn't be this kind to mountain people. He felt he had to make things clear to them. This is probably a misunderstanding. At first, they were just exchanging pleasantries, saying they never expected something like this to happen. Then the master immediately took over the conversation. Yes, we really didn't expect this. It even made people feel uncomfortable. Oops, I just trembled. Now my whole body is shaking. Seeing them shaking like this, the master quickly shifted the topic. Although it's unpleasant, we respect Ian. So we won't tarnish his pride because of differences in status. Therefore, please don't be upset. In the future, our family will fully support your son, Ho. It's been a while since I've heard anything good from you. Clearly, he doesn't seem to want to deal with his old man. In stark contrast to his old man, who is scared out of his mind. Rona, on the other hand, is surprised by the change in the family head's attitude. In the previous 2 episodes, they still wanted to dispose of him as an ordinary civilian. But now, he's actually making the decision to protect civilians under his wing for the sake of his family. And it's clear here as well. What the head of the family says is definitely not a lie. When the head of the family says he'll fully support him, it's reliable and solid. The head of the family knows that mental domain is not a magical ability that can be obtained simply through hard work. And he also already knows that Rona's goal is to become a wizard. So, he will help Ronald get an uncertified magician's license in the fastest way. In that case, the 5 great families of the kingdom, and the Alpia's magic school, is absolutely the most suitable magic school for Ronald to go to right now. I don't recommend other schools. Currently, only academies of the level of Alpia's magic school are worthy of the orphaned family status. Stop going on and on by yourself. Speak normally. Do you want to see what state your father is in right now? What I mean is, your son can become a wizard after graduating from that school. Yeah. If I hadn't put it that way, your father wouldn't have understood what family head meant. Actually, it's not entirely your father's fault. When Ronar was little, he did study magic. But Dad thought it was just a child's fantasy. Furthermore, thinking from another perspective, a mountain villager wouldn't even dare to dream of making their child a magician. Because of their status, existing magic schools are all special schools. Besides noble children, commoners are simply not allowed to enroll. So, there's only one way now. I want to adopt Silona. Let him continue to live as my adopted son. Actually, this is also the result of the family meeting's discussion. Other than this, there's no other way. One of my cousins is still immature. He still doesn't have any children. Uploading the household registration to that side will make the problem easily solvable. But don't worry, we don't have any intention of taking the children. This is just a registration on paper. We can also use this certificate, DDD, to make Silona a noble. This is definitely a move that will overturn Dad's perception, because Rona can directly become a noble. Who in the world wouldn't want the chance to reverse their status? But he was afraid that Ronald would be taken away because of this. He looked at Ronald, but that glance made him even more anxious. Why was Ronald so calm? What kind of attitude is this now? Has Ronald already made up his mind? Suddenly, Ronald moved. He looked at his father, and he placed his hand on his father's hand. Then, he tightly squeezed it. He looked up and answered on behalf of his father. This is of course not possible. He has his own father, so he could never become someone else's adopted son. Seeing this, his sister quickly tried to persuade him. It's just a registration document. They will still see their current parents as their real parents. And this way, he can also achieve his dreams. It's all gain and no loss for him, isn't it? The head of the family also began to persuade him. Becoming a noble isn't an opportunity everyone can get. But Ronan's attitude remained firm. If he must change his parents, he'd rather be a commoner. But if you want to be a commoner, you can't attend a magic school. In that case, I won't apply to the magic school. The old head of the family and Rona started arguing like this. Rona's attitude was, if it has to be like this, I'd rather not be a mage. This made the old head of the family frantic. He couldn't understand. He had given him such a good opportunity. Doesn't he understand such a simple truth that to succeed, you must give up something? No, he actually understands everything. Ron is really a smart kid. If he didn't understand the need for sacrifice, he wouldn't have made it this far. He has his own boundaries. He understands that no matter how great his dreams are, they are still inherited from his parents. If the parents are the roots, then he is the fruit that grew with dreams as its nourishment. From the moment he learned to read at the age of 6, it all stemmed from his parents' guidance. The books he read were all painstakingly brought back for him by his parents. The principles by which he lives, his parents taught him. Even the opportunity to study, to become a steward and enter the Osen family, was all earned through his parents' tireless efforts. All of this, it is all due to his parents as the root. That gave him limitless possibilities. And now, the opportunity they gave him is nothing compared to the endless possibilities his parents gave him. Now, asking him to deny his roots is no different from condemning him to dry up and die. He is deeply grateful for the help from the old master. But his parents, there will always only be these two present. Is it guilt? Or is it a moral issue? No, actually neither. The patriarch has already understood Rona's mindset. At this moment, the old man once again bent down for Rona. He howled, begging the patriarch to adopt Rona as his son. And at that moment, he revealed the secret he'd kept for 16 years. That Ronald wasn't his biological son. Ronald was completely stunned. His mother was in disbelief, while his father continued to recount the truth. The fact that they were infertile. He revealed the truth that Ronald was found in Mali. He even said that Ronald was definitely the child of a noble family, so he could be adopted by a noble family. For Rona, this actually means reclaiming the position he rightfully deserves. In fact, there's no need for father to say it. The head of the family already guessed this, because from the moment they met, he had already noticed that Rona's appearance was completely different from his parents. He couldn't help but wonder, is father's statement now a declaration of abandoning his own son? Rona stopped his father from speaking. His father's eyes were filled with guilt. He felt sorry for hiding the truth from Rona for 16 years. But Rona had already grown up. He felt it was time for Rona to know. But in fact, this wasn't a one-sided concealment at all. Because this secret couldn't be hidden from Rona. He had already known the truth long ago. It's just that he never asked about it. Just like everyone in the world only has one pair of parents. He hoped so too. But now, does his father want him to have 6 parents? This question terrified his father. That wasn't what he meant at all. His father was really worried and heartbroken. He was afraid that Ronan would give up his dreams because of them. But this kind of love from his father puts an even heavier burden on Rona. His father loves Rona too much. He only thinks about giving everything he has to Rona. But it is precisely because of this that he unintentionally ignores Rona's heart, twice wounded by abandonment. This makes Rona completely break down in tears. Only then does the father suddenly realize how heavy a burden his love has placed on Rona. Just like during their previous farewell, he hugged Rona again. He once again felt guilty and sad for himself. He felt sorry for his own child. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone was too afraid to move. They were afraid of disturbing Rona's family. Sometimes, in the name of what's best for the child, we really end up causing them significant harm. Being a parent is really difficult. The family head looks at his son. The family head covers his head, unable to cry out loud. Because raising 4 siblings on his own, he truly understands how hard it is to be a parent. He can feel the emotions of Rona's parents at this moment. The family head also looks at his own son. Rona's father has gone this far for Rona. He did it for his son, and also for Rona. He decided that Rona must go to the Magic Academy. Alpea's magic school has a special selective admission process. He insisted that the family head must find a way to secure that spot. The family head was stunned when he heard this. How could he persuade that old stubborn man at the Magic Academy? Is there really no way? I heard he owes you a huge debt. The old family head suddenly realized after listening. That actually makes some sense. This method seems like a magic cure for someone unreasonable. It might just work on them. If someone is born but not raised, cutting off a finger can be repaid. If someone is born and raised, only beheading can repay it. But if someone is raised without being born, then it would take 100 generations to repay. He feared that it would be difficult to repay this nurturing grace. Rona deeply understood this principle. So if he had to exchange his parents' name for wealth and glory, he would not hesitate to abandon that so-called dream. And the scene of their family huddling together made the head of the family realize just how absurd their actions were. It was precisely because of this that he decided to pay any price. They also want to send Rona to Alpea's Magic Academy. In the days until Peanut heads to the Swordsmanship Academy 3 days later, under the care of the Ostent family head, Rona's family enjoyed the long-missed warmth at the Ostent mansion. Her father still wore an expression full of apology. It might take a long time for him to recover. And these 2 young men, who had sworn a knight's oath to each other with their lives, it was only after knowing each other for a whole year that they first had a brief period of time to enjoy each other's company freely and without worries. But, time always passes so quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days would have disappeared. Today is the day Ronan goes home, and Peanut sets off. At the same time, it is also the day they must say goodbye. Peanut cried until he was a mess, but I guess the main reason might be because he had to go to school. The 2 boys promised to meet up during the holidays. They promised to keep in touch by letters. Peanut made the promise once again. It was also a form of mutual encouragement. You must become a wizard, and I will definitely become the strongest knight. You can protect your sword well. But the reality is, whether that brat can even graduate is another matter. Still being all sentimental here, the one we should be most worried about is clearly him. Sister assured Rona not to worry. The old family head will definitely handle Rona's enrollment. So before you set off, take some time to enjoy being with your family. At this point, Rona also expressed the gratitude hidden deep in his heart. His sister looked at him and couldn't help but sigh. At first, she thought he was just a cute little brother, but she never expected him to be such a thoughtful child, and even in such a terrifying situation, he was able to maintain his beliefs. It truly was a rare and admirable spirit. My sister was about to give Rona some advice about life after graduation, but she held back at the last moment, because she knew how full of endless possibilities the magical world was. And for Rona, it would be a vast and brand new world. The advice turned into encouragement. I believe you can definitely become a great magician. Let's both work hard together. Thus, the brother and sister embarked on the path of swordsmanship. Rona also set off on the journey back home. 2 young people, born into two different social classes, began their own pursuits, guided by their dreams. They would each give their all in chasing the path to the top in their respective fields. And this story, though it is just the meeting of two passionate young souls, it is precisely because of this encounter. The Nanchu comics are recorded by the world as the event that started the breaking of the world structure. Therefore, it is forever recorded in history. Nan Shangshi, in the office of the Alpia's magic school, one of the 5 renowned families of the kingdom. The old patriarch is desperately trying to get that opportunity for Ronar. The old patriarch is desperately trying to secure that opportunity for Ronar. Nanchu comics. Chu man, I've been waiting for you for half an hour. I should be able to expect a positive answer from you, right? I really can't agree to that kind of request. Even if we've been brothers for 50 years, it's still a no. Hey, what are you talking about? Have you forgotten how much suffering I endured because of you when I was young? Ha! You're really going too far, you old rascal. Are you trying to pressure me with that? It seems you're quite anxious about this. But this school wasn't established specifically to become a breeding ground for the aristocracy's lapdogs. Although we receive many commissions every year, there are always conditions for preferential enrollment. Ho! You're such a stubborn old man. Fine, but let me tell you, this situation is different. I'm not asking you to take him in. On the contrary, that kid is quite unusual. When I saw that guy, do you know what I was thinking? What I saw was like seeing a younger version of yourself. If his grades are good, he should just enroll officially, right? Is there a problem? There is a problem. And there's a big problem with that. That kid. XXX. He's not a noble. Wait. That can't be a coincidence, can it? Don't tell me that kid has blue eyes. And blonde hair. The family head specifically went to the Alpea's Magic Academy, just to ask the old principal for a special admission slot for Rona to attend school. But what a coincidence. Through their conversation, the old principal learned that Rona was the same child who had climbed over the wall 4 years ago. The two of them then started talking about Rona in detail. That kid actually said that even if he lost his life, he wouldn't regret being friends with others. Those words really sounded nice. But that was just my first impression of him. I originally thought he was just a child who knew how to touch the hearts of adults. But when the proposal to adopt him came up, he was able to say something like denying his own roots. Isn't that pretty much the same as letting him dry up and die? Go on, tell me, what does that even mean? He actually rejected becoming a noble. This child, at such a young age, already understands the essence of cause and effect. That's right, he actually understands that without roots, there can be no fruit. You know, many people are still lost because they don't understand this principle, aren't they? Modern people always have many new opportunities presented before them, but that opportunity can also be the moment they negate the foundation of their self. Once they stumble, they will be lost forever. And look, being absolutely uncompromising about what you believe is right, doesn't it remind you of how you were when you were young? Uncompromising. That's because you believed it was absolutely correct. But being uncompromising also means you might face the judgment of others. Actually, I now feel that was really a dangerous thing to do. You still haven't forgiven yourself, have you? You've actually done everything you could, and now you've also nurtured many talented people. Shouldn't you forgive yourself by now? The word forgive. That's a form of arrogance, my old friend. I've always been nurturing the kids, but what I'm doing is because I don't want this world to have anyone like me again. Even if what you say is true. If that child really is like me, who can guarantee that he Nanchu man won't walk down the same terrifying path I did? You're a genius, Alpias. And a once-in-a-century genius at that. You, the shining light of the family, merely took a wrong turn once. At Chu Comics, though that one time almost ruined everything, but didn't you come back? But honestly, wow, who would have thought someone like you would end up in such a rural place, as a wrinkled old principal? Oh, you blue-haired monster. Before you say anything about me, take a look at yourself. He's clearly an idiot with no talent for swordsmanship. How could he possibly become a recognized third-tier swordsman? And he even became a general. I'm really worried about the future of the kingdom of Tolmia. Old white hair, don't you think? This feels like destiny. Besides, he even had a brief encounter with you. The boy you sent outside the wall 4 years ago has actually returned like this? Cut it out, you blue-haired freak. I don't believe in fate or anything like that. But, the talent that was once blocked by identity has somehow reappeared after 4 years of twists and turns. Could it be? Alright, fine, bring me Sirova. I will let him enroll. Under the relentless pressure from the old master, the old principal hesitated repeatedly. In the end, he decided to accept what might have been a twist of fate. He agreed to let Rona enroll as a special admission student. After that, several months passed in the blink of an eye. The carriage from the Osint family arrives to pick up Rona for departure. Excited, Rona had already packed his luggage. Additionally, he had already had his hair cut short, as arranged by his mother. After spending a sweet 3 months at home, it's finally time for his farewell before leaving. A side note, actually, it's not just us who aren't used to it. Even Rona himself feels uneasy about the short hair. But since Mom said it's the hairstyle that's currently popular among nobles, there's not much to say about that, then. It's to fit in, you know. Dad doesn't think it's a big deal. He thinks his son looks good with any hairstyle. But you mustn't forget the things you absolutely have to do before you leave. But the child has grown up. He's 17 this year. Kissing him would be so embarrassing. However, in the eyes of parents, children will always be children, even if you've been out in the world for a long time. The Osmond family actually arranged houses for them in the city. But the old man didn't want to go, which puzzled Ron. The old man declared righteously that we are hunters. A hunter's roots are in the mountains and wilds. It's impossible to go to the city. And it will never become appealing. That's what they say. But in reality, Ronan knows. His father only refused because he didn't want him to worry. After all, isn't there always a divide between commoners and nobles? The deputy butler has been waiting for a long time. Last time, only 2 servants came to pick him up for the Osint family. But this time, the deputy butler himself was arranged for the outing. From this, it's clear how much the Osint family values Ronan now. The first day of heading to the Magic Academy is starting like this. A stark contrast to the warm moments spent with his parents. The two of them sat in the carriage, silent all the way. It was so awkward that Ronan felt like he could dig a set of 3-ring villas with his toes. Finally, Ronan arrived at his destination. With the deputy butler's help, he stepped down to the place where his dreams would take flight. This was the Alpea's Magic Academy. Ronan's tuition and textbook fees would be fully handled by the Osent family. He just needs to focus on his studies. And Ron suddenly remembered that after everything he'd been through, he hadn't properly expressed his gratitude to the assistant butler. Sure enough, after Ron's expression of gratitude, he received the usual stern admonition from the old, proud assistant butler. Even if commoners rise above themselves, they're still commoners. Never surpass the nobles. But before he finished, his next words were, after the young master enters the school, many nobles will not be able to tolerate him. Even so, I hope the young master can endure and endure again. If he can hold on until the end, there will be an end to it. That will be the day of rising to greatness. It was like this from the first time I met Rona. When we first met, I was worried that Rona had been deceived by his father and said those seemingly cruel words. The vice butler, from beginning to end, was just a person with a sharp tongue but a kind heart, warm-hearted but unaware of it. Next, in this place known as the Cradle of Geniuses, what will Luo Na learn? And who will he meet? It's all so full of anticipation. Upon entering the school, he was greeted by the welcome slogans of 2 rows of guards. The 5 major noble families of the kingdom are truly prestigious. Their presence is truly imposing. After all, no one would expect that 2 teams would be specially arranged to line up and welcome them right at the school gate. Goodbyes always come quickly in the comics. After sending Ronar off, the deputy butler has to leave. And while Ronar looked around, he saw the school's operational system. Alpea's academy organizes its classes into 10 divisions. The total number of students in the school is 420, but there are only 30 students in the graduating class. And the number of graduates each year is even fewer, only 10 students. Suddenly, someone called out Ronan's name from behind. It was the former principal at Manhwa. He greeted Ronan with a concerned tone. Ronan also deeply thanked the former principal for the guidance he had received in his youth. In the pleasant atmosphere, the former principal began to take Ronan for the entrance exam. It's a test that determines entry into the class ranking. The old principal suddenly asked if the Rana mental field could be activated. Let me tell you, old white hair, you're really out of luck. Not only can it be activated, but it's stable as hell once it's on. You're something, Nan Chu. Why didn't you say this earlier? Ho. You let it slip yourself, and now you blame me. It's not too late now. Hurry up and take him away. Okay, but we still have to start with the basics. Then hurry up. Stop wasting my time. Are you trying to poison me or something? It's too early now. The kids in the exam hall are only around 10 years old right now. What if it hurts their self-esteem? Fine, then take him for a walk. It's also good to let him have a look around your school first. Let the little masters see it too. Here's a kid using the levitation spell to read. Don't be so surprised, it's just basic stuff. Alright then, see you next episode. You, old white hair, your hand, I'm suspicious you're in the water. Fine, let's watch a bit more. Here, this is the beginner class. A class for levels 10 to 8. Just like that levitation spell, the kids here all know how to do it. And kids at this level are generally around 10 years old. Alright, in the next episode, I'll show you the intermediate and advanced classes. By the way, Happy New Year. Give me a reason to stop now, you old fool. The reason we're stopping now is because Amy is here with us. She'll appear in the next episode. Which one? Can you help me remember? Oh no, what kind of memory do you have? It's that red-haired noble girl from when we were kids. It's the new year. What, no sleep? Old white hair, you're really annoying. If you're brave enough, try it. I haven't even finished talking. Oops. Sorry. It's a misunderstanding. I'll start right now. Please go back. Wait, cut to a different scene. Last time, we mentioned that the old principal took Ronan on a tour of the beginners class. Children around 10 years old can already use magic. This scene made Ronan gasp in amazement. At this moment, the old principal led Rona through the advanced class. But the atmosphere here is completely different from the basic class. Most of the students are around Rona's age. As they passed by, Rona overheard their conversation. How about lowering the temperature to below freezing to create convective energy? But it seems like directly condensing the refrigerant would be more effective. There's a downside, though. That won't promote a reversible reaction, if we don't change the direction of energy. Finished, it's clearly the same language. But I can't understand a single word. Yinshi, OS what the heck? Why did it blow up before I could finish? This is even more absurd. A huge explosion happened in the middle of the auditorium. That little girl must be the culprit. But the headmaster reacted as if nothing happened. He just asked, what seems to be the problem here? The young girl answered normally, saying that the output circuit of the sound amplification experiment had malfunctioned. The people around her also stood there without reacting at all, as if it were nothing unusual. The old principal gave the young girl some advice. The young girl gave a thumbs up. Makes sense, I'll try again. Again? Aren't you going to do anything about this? Rona only now deeply realizes that this place is truly different from the outside world. The people here have extraordinary perceptions and daily routines that defy common sense. When you're part of it, it feels like being in a new world that's been carved out of another kingdom. A small, independent world full of mystical colors. At this moment, Rona walked along and saw a bulletin board. The Nanchu Academy's golden plaque lists the overall rankings of the advanced class. And the first name on the bulletin board is clearly Amy Kalmiz. Ronar knew that the Kalmiz family was a first-rate aristocratic lineage. He let out a heartfelt sigh at the name's owner. Everyone here possesses abilities beyond the ordinary. And yet, the owner of this name still stands out amongst them, demonstrating exceptional strength. Meanwhile, he also came up with another idea. He really wants to challenge him. As long as he can study well here, there will definitely be a chance. The same look that appeared in the Orphaned library reappeared on his face. It was a longing for great power. It was also a desire to challenge the strong. Suddenly, a passerby's exclamation was heard. Is the first place winner really here? He followed the sound with his eyes. Then, he saw a being that filled him with utter terror. The instant he saw this person, the terrifying, unforgettable memory instantly overwhelmed his vision. The bullying he suffered as a child. That red-haired noblewoman who appeared suddenly, only to seek amusement. The chaos she created after her magic went berserk. And also, the terrifying gaze and hysterical questioning from that red-haired young lady. These scenes kept replaying like a revolving lantern. It was all just because he had glanced at this person. It shows just how heavy the childhood trauma she left on Rona truly was. At this moment, Rona felt like his heart was about to leap out of his throat. Because this person was probably the only one he never wanted to encounter again in this lifetime. The young girl accompanying Amy, however, had a completely opposite mindset compared to Rona. Did you see that? That new guy looks so handsome. I really want to eat him up. Okay, that's a full sentence, we can't air that. Amy couldn't be bothered to respond to her, but she actually noticed Rona. However, she didn't recognize Rona at this moment. The girl she was with felt strange. What? You wouldn't be interested, would you? Aren't you not interested in men? Amy found the question both amusing and frustrating. But you can't blame the young girl for asking. Amy's reputation at the Alpia's magic school was exceptionally high. First of all, she was the top student. Secondly, not only are they incredibly skilled, but they also strictly avoid any romantic involvement, resolutely rejecting any confession. They are the most dazzling presence among the exemplary students of the entire academy. And the worst part is, the only person who currently knows this shining exemplary student's dark history is currently processing their enrollment, looking like a puffed-up cat, completely intimidated. The Magic Academy chapter officially begins. This house, which seems plain and unremarkable on the surface, is actually the third examination hall of the Magic Academy, and upon arriving here, you just happen to catch an exam that hasn't finished yet. The old headmaster instructed Rona to closely observe the child's exam process, and in the center of the hall, there is a magic circle. As long as you enter the mental realm within the circle, you will be able to sense information about your own mental realm that is reflected by the magic circle. The examiners will then analyze the size, strength, flexibility, and magical inclination of the mental realm based on the candidate's information. So, the candidate only needs to answer the examiner's questions honestly. The examiner's first question is whether they can use magic. The child is named Kemi. He has now reached the level where he can skillfully use levitation. Then, under the examiner's guidance, he activated the mental domain. But we can't see it. Only the child can sense those presences. The examiner asked the second question. How far can you see the numbers? And the number Kemi saw was 6. The number 6 means that the child's mental domain has a diameter of 6 meters. The third question. What is the most vivid color you can feel? And now, in Kemi's world, it is filled with a sea of red. Red, which represents the divergent state of the mental realm. It is the color of the fusion of light and fire. It has characteristics of high-intensity movement tendencies. As the teacher throws out one question after another and records the summaries, Kemi's exam is finally over. The purple-haired teacher is named Ali, a recognized 6th order mage, and the blonde teacher is called Saad, also a recognized 6th order. Their evaluation of Kemi is excellent application ability in the spiritual realm, but poor durability. Next up is Ronan's exam. The two teachers hold differing opinions about this newly admitted, preferentially selected student, but actually, their expectations aren't high, because the file clearly states, Ronan's advanced age of 17 is a fact, so they judge that this supposed outside genius will surely fall into mediocrity soon. The first question, whether he can use magic, quickly began to disappoint them. The old headmaster didn't have any particular thoughts. Noble children learn all sorts of things from a young age. That's why they can naturally use magic. He thought that Ronan simply lacked knowledge. As long as he had enough knowledge to support him, Ronan would certainly be fine. Next, it's a matter of opening his spiritual realm under the teacher's guidance, and learning that Rona could use the mental domain. Both of them breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this newcomer wasn't too extreme. The initial comics are still easy to follow. The experience was completely different from when he entered the mental domain with Kami. This time, at Manhwa, all the information in the mental domain became visualized for Rona. At the same time, it also startled him. He was no stranger to the mental domain, but the information that surged out and floated around him made him feel as if he had opened a new world. Saad began to ask how far the farthest number Ronan could see was. But he didn't get a response from Ronan for a long time. He just stood there quietly. This action deepened the teacher's disappointment in him. It's okay, just tell us the truth. We're not going to use this to rank you. We just want to find the right educational approach for you. But the truth is not like that. It's not that Rona doesn't want to speak. It's just that the numbers he can see are too many, and they keep changing, which makes it hard for him to know how to speak. Saad was even more upset when he heard this, but due to his role as a teacher, he couldn't lose his temper. It's okay, just talk about the previous numbers. Forget it. Let's directly enter Rona's spiritual realm and see what's going on. Rona isn't joking. What he's looking at is not a single number, but an entire row of numbers. Numbers that seem to have no boundaries. And at the very beginning, it clearly says 3.14. 3.14. The teachers immediately erupted, launching another round of confirmations. But that's pi, the mathematical constant. Ronald was a bit at a loss, because he hadn't lied, but the teacher's follow-up questions made him realize something was wrong. Ali started to break into a cold sweat. Pi is not a non-existent number. However, it's a number that only appears when the scale of the domain exceeds certain limits. But the set measurement range is a full 30 meters. The teacher, still relatively calm, let the exam continue. They need to know the color of the domain. And the blue mental domain is a convergent type mental domain. This is in stark contrast to the divergent type domain characteristics. Naturally, this surprised the teachers even more. A normally convergent spiritual domain couldn't possibly have such a large range. The headmaster was dumbfounded. At this moment, he finally understood why the old patriarch dared to make such bold claims, saying that Ron would surprise him. But, for the headmaster, this was more like a fright. The exam continued, even though it left them constantly amazed. After recording the domain's color, they needed to know more information. So, how many luminous orbs were floating around him? And the answer, unsurprisingly, still caused a stir. Ronan was surrounded by an ocean of luminous orbs. And he didn't need to count them individually. He could sense it directly. And the number of orbs was exactly 867. This answer was more than just strange to them, but terror. The teacher wrote the number 86.7% with trembling hands. The headmaster clearly understood what this meant. This was beyond the level of genius. This level could be called dangerous. Ollie suppressed his astonishment and asked again, Silona, tell me, how cold are you now? Ronald couldn't answer.